Hello again and welcome again to my Aspie marriage. The next stage, so I'm kind of doing this in stages, although it will be broken up with the odd tidbit here and there, but the next stage of our relationship was after having been separated for a little while, he talked me into moving in with him, and he lived in a small outback country town where the population was really small and I didn't know anyone. Now, I did go on a holiday there for 2 weeks, and during those 2 weeks everything was fine because he had 2 weeks off, so we were doing things together, going for motorbike rides, we went to a nightclub, we went to restaurants, so we had this kind of nice time. And I was happy in those 2 weeks. I'd really had a nice time with him. But then when I moved in, it was a whole different ball game. How distant and everything he was when he lived at my house. When I moved in with him, it was suddenly tenfold. Like, he was super distant. And I remember thinking, what the hell? Like, what is this? Now, prior to my moving there, he had said to me, if you don't like it, I will pay for you to go back home. I'd left my house, it was being rented out, I was still paying the mortgage and the rates and the bills, gardener bills and whatever have you. So when I moved in with him, most of my income was still going to that, and then I eventually got a job and then started paying for bills and food and such with him. So it didn't leave me with a whole lot of money to spare for me to save up and go back home. So he had said that he would pay for me to go back home if I didn't like it. And I get there and he is beyond distant. He would get up, go to work, come back home, switch on the telly, go and have a shower, come watch the news, watch the other news, and then some more news, and then some sport. And then it would be like 9:30, 10:30, and he'd be tired and he'd go to sleep. And during that time, we would have zero conversation. I would start a little conversation here, a topic there, how was your day, things like this. And like, he was even coming home from work, for example, and going, hi, how are you, how was your day? And then walking up the hallway as I'm replying, and I'm like, you're not even sticking around to hear my answer. So it was really kind of frustrating. And this turned into days, weeks and months living with this person who barely spoke. So I eventually say to him, I don't know how many months in, 6 months, something like this, eventually say to him, we never talk. And he said, we don't need to talk, we already talked in the letters and phone calls. We know all there is to know about each other, what's there to talk about? And I was like, ooh, this is not how normal relationships usually go. It certainly wasn't how it had gone with my previous relationships. So that threw me for a six. I was a little bit confused. I was just wondering, who thinks like that? Why do they think like that? It made absolutely no sense to me. Now, looking back and knowing that he has this condition, I can see that he would have wanted to come back home after working all day and really just relax and unwind in a very deep way than I would have ever wanted to. I didn't operate that way. I can just be on and just stay on. Whereas he is on and then he gets to a point where he just needs to switch off, which I had no clue at that time. So all of a sudden I was living with him and there was no conversation. I had no friends there. My only person that I knew there was him, and he was really cold and super distant, like he never spoke to me at all. There was a time during that first year where his brother rang to speak to him, but he was occupied, and so I was talking to his brother on the phone, and I'd said to his brother, I don't think he likes me. And the brother says, of course he does. And I said, how do you know? And he said, he just does. and that was as good as it got. But I was obviously having doubts at this point in time because this guy was so antisocial. Add to that, he didn't compliment, he didn't flirt, he didn't show signs of affection. There were times that he had these two-seaters. He would be sitting on this one and I would go up to him and sit, and he would say, "Move away from me, you're too clingy." And I was like, okay. And so then I'd go and sit on this couch, and so we would spend our nights with him on that couch, me on this couch, watching whatever he wanted to watch. And it was never an option, do we want to watch something she wants to watch? It was not a thing. We would sit there sort of night after night watching sports or news or current affair or 60 Minutes, or those kinds of things that he was interested in. And there'd be no conversation. I soon became really depressed there, regretted having moved there. I was doing things like going for walks at night time just to be out and about, but there was really not much else to do in this small country town. It was a very dark period. By the first year, I'd said to him, "I don't want to be here. I want you to buy me a ticket and send me back home." And he refused. He just said, "I'm not paying for you to go home. I'll never see that money again." But I think what he was really more afraid of is that he was worried he was never going to see me again, because I had assured him that I would pay him back. There was no problem with that, and I'm a person of my word. Anyway, he refused, but he also told a friend at work that I feel really sorry for her, and so I keep the relationship going. And the friend had said to him, "Oh, you're just too nice." And when he came home and told me that story, I was pretty angry because it wasn't the truth. He didn't tell the friend that she's desperately wanting to leave and I won't let her. So he looked like this really lovely good guy. And so that was annoying because it wasn't the truth. I ended up spending 2 more years there because that's how long it took me to save up in amongst everything else that I had going on, including needing my own transport to get to work because work was miles away. Another thing that was going on as well is that, if you recall in a previous video, I said that he moved in with me and I was supporting him. When I first got there, it took me about 5 months to find a job. And during that time, I don't know where this stems from. It's just foreign to me. I don't get it. But he kept accusing me of only being there for his money. He'd come home and he'd be like, "Have you found a job yet?" "No, well, you're only using me for my money." And I was like, that's left field again. Where's that coming from? I don't know if it was people at work saying this stuff to him. Who knows? But that was his thing then, that I was using him for his money, and he kept saying that. It was just this new sort of phrase thing that he started saying. When I did confront him eventually about the lack of affection, he started saying to me things like, "Well, you're too annoying. If you were less annoying, I would show you affection." And so he started to sort of put it back to me that I was the fault of everything. I was the cause of everything. And so I'm there thinking, I'm annoying. Damn, how am I being annoying? Let me try not to be annoying. And I was trying to adapt and trying to be quieter, less talkative, less whatever. And nothing I did worked. I even did a little bit of an experiment about probably my 3rd year there. By now I was diagnosed with depression by one of the doctors. They tried to put me on a medication, which I hated, so I didn't keep taking it. So I did this experiment. I moved out of his bedroom into one of the spare rooms that he had, and I would sit in there all night listening to music while he was watching telly. So now I had my own space, and I wasn't sleeping with him during that time because I was sleeping in my own bed. And so I sort of cut off all the affection, all of the chatting. I kind of matched him with his treatment of me. And I wondered if it would make a difference, because he'd said that I was too clingy. So I thought, well, I wonder what he'll do if I be the opposite of clingy and be really distant. And he was ropeable. He was angry. He was getting cross at me because I wouldn't sit with him and watch sport with him, even though I hate sport and we're not talking. Even during the ads we didn't talk. So it was an interesting experiment. I did that for 3 months, and by the end of that 3 months, we were at loggerheads. We were not getting along so badly that I was looking for places to move out to, even though I couldn't afford it because I was still paying for my mortgage back home. So I ended up staying with him. So it didn't work, that little experiment. And again, I didn't know what was going on with him. I had no idea that he was Aspie. I only knew that he was different, that he wasn't like my other boyfriends who, they just flirted with me. I would be doing dishes and they would come up and flirt with me. Just throw random compliments out there. They were just endearing and they wanted to spend time with me, and they would have turned the telly off to face me and talk and things like this, whereas I had this sort of almost robotic person who just Groundhog Day me, just day in, day out, day in, day out, day in, day out, so little interaction. And I was ringing family and friends, just desperate for answers, like, what is going on with this guy? I've never seen anything like it. And they were saying, have you tried talking to him? Which he didn't want to talk, so that wasn't working anyway. Even if I did confront him, he wasn't chatting about it anyway. I don't even know if he knew. And this is the interesting thing as well. I don't think that he had the concept of, I've had this really long-winded day, and he was working 12-hour shifts. I mean, he worked tremendous shifts. So I don't think it even registered in his mind that I had this really hard day and I just want to come home and unwind. I don't even think he knew to put that into words. He was just coming home and doing what he would have been doing had I not been there. And that was exactly how it was going. Before I came along, this is what he did. Now that I'm here, this is what he did. There was no concept for him that you adapt when you're in a relationship. You have to be giving in some way. You can't just be completely antisocial and they're going to be okay. But that didn't dawn on him. He wasn't aware of that. I was his first living relationship, so he had no concept of what it was like to live with another person. He was often telling me, you're the only one who feels this way, there's something wrong with you, you're crazy, you're annoying. That was his favourite go-to. That was the thing that he said to me almost weekly. It got a bit annoying. So yeah, it was just a very dark time. Yeah, that was our next 3 years. So again, I ask you, when you moved in with your Asperger's partner, did you find that this is what happened, that they switched right off? It was definitely more of, now that I've got you, I don't need to do a single thing to keep you, you're here. And in my case, I was actually trapped, I mean, I could kick myself because I should never have moved there without having the funds enough to have left myself. So, did you find that you got into the relationship with them and they were just really quiet, really they're just living their life like they did before you arrived, and you being there didn't really make a difference to them? Was that how it worked for you? And if you're an autistic person, did you find that when that person did move in, you had no idea what to do, or it was just so overwhelming? Like, obviously, because autistic people, they don't talk as much as neurotypicals, it would have been overwhelming for him, my partner, to be having these conversations. So if you were in this kind of boat, you might have been feeling the same thing. In fact, I had an online discussion with an autistic person who was saying that when he, could have been a she, when they were in their relationship with their neurotypical partner, they were in it for 6 years, they said they had a nervous breakdown because it was so overwhelming for them, because suddenly they were in this relationship with this person who wanted to talk all the time and do stuff all the time and interact all the time and delve into things and, all those things that I suppose neurotypicals want to do that maybe Aspies are just like, shh, stop talking. So was it that way for you, that you got in a relationship with your neurotypical person, and just felt overwhelmed. And on that note, I really want to know from autistic people, if that's the case for you, why are you so interested in having relationships if being in them is so overwhelming and hard, and you can't meet their needs, and you don't want to meet their needs, and you feel like they're not meeting your needs? I've always been really curious about this, because I definitely wondered that about my partner. Prior to meeting him, he had told me that he was really struggling to meet somebody, and then when he finally had me, he just treated me like I didn't matter, and I couldn't understand that. Why want a relationship so badly and then not want that relationship? It was very, very confusing. Anyway, if you have any light you can shed on the subject, feel free to drop a line, because I'm very, very curious about that. Anyway, as usual, I really appreciate you being here and watching these videos, and I really look forward to reading your comments and having some further discussions about this. Thank you very much for watching.